Hey guys, welcome back to my show. In today's episode, I have a really special guest with me today. His name is Allan Woodrow. Hi Allan, how are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm great. Please introduce yourself and the latest book you've written.
Sure. So as you mentioned, my name is Allan Woodrow, and I am an author of children's books. I've written 30 books for children that have been published in the last 10 years or so.
Awesome. So please, could you tell us more about yourself? Like, what is your background? How did you get started with writing?
Sure. So I wanted to be an author since I was as long as I can remember. I remember in fourth grade, the teacher went around and asked us what we wanted to be when we grew up, and I said I wanted to be a writer. So I wanted to be a writer since I could want to be anything, and I always wrote growing up. I wrote short stories. I wrote my own monster books. I wrote comic strips, and I continued to write. I never lost my love of wanting to write. So I'm just got excited when I became an adult, and now I get to write for a living is really a dream come true for me, because it's something I've always loved to do.
That's awesome. It's nice to see that you wanted to write since the beginning. I know that some writers and authors who start off, they want to be something else, like I don't know, a police officer, journalist, not specifically something that requires writing or even is being a writer or author. But personally, I think that saying that you're a writer, your career won't be becoming a writer, your career will be an author, because you're basically already a writer if you write something.
Certainly, and I wanted to be an author, not just a writer, and I wrote for many years. I have been in advertising, so I've written television commercials and radio commercials and websites and print ads, but I always wanted to be an author, not just a writer. So it was many years before I decided to actually sit down and try to actually write a book to get published. And I was excited and fortunate enough that it happened to me. But I was a writer professionally for many, many years before I became an author.
That's fantastic. So what would you say would be the strengths that you have as an author?
Being in advertising for many years, you learn how to take criticism. You write something and people don't like it. You write something and people want to change it. And when you first start out, you can take that personally. If someone doesn't like what you write, it's a part of who I am. What do you mean you don't like it? But you kind of grow a thicker skin, so to speak, where people can criticize your work and you don't take it personally, and you can listen to those criticisms and you can take their advice and make your work better. As an author, I still get comments from editors, from other writers, from people I know and respect who write, and I can take that criticism and that advice and their suggestions and incorporate that into my writing to make it better. So the fact that I've been a writer for so long and have had people criticize my work for so long is a great super strength of mine, because I can take those criticisms and make my writing better.
That's awesome. I think that's really important to know how to accept the feedback you get. You may not agree with it completely, but get a gist of what they think about your work, because in the end you want your reader to enjoy, or the people who read your book to enjoy what you're writing. Of course, there's personal preferences. Some people don't like middle grade books, some people only read YA or vice versa. That's kind of things you cannot really change. You cannot make your middle grade novel YA. That's a completely different thing. And no one is really telling anyone to change anything just for the sake of readers, because in the end, it's your work. You choose what to do with it, whether you want to make it YA, MG, or whatever. But yes, as you said, it's important to kind of develop a thicker skin. You developed it through advertising, and I think what would you that actually brings me to my next question, based on what you just said. What do you think young writers can do to build that thicker skin, since of course they are not in advertisements and writing ads and things? So what do you think they can do to develop that thicker skin?
Well, when you're writing or doing anything for yourself, it's very hard to look beyond what you're right in front of you to see the bigger picture. So if you're just writing something, it's hard to see your writing from other people's points of view. You might think something's very funny, but someone else doesn't think it's funny. You, in your mind, things are happening and you understand how things are happening, and then someone else just walks in and doesn't know what you're thinking, and they're trying to read what you have and they don't understand it. That happens to everyone. When you're a student, you have a teacher, and your teacher, of course, is grading your work and giving you feedback. And that feedback is often really wise, and it's a great way to learn. As an adult writer, I don't have teachers, but I have people who read my work who are just as wise and can give me great feedback. And so rather than me just looking at my own little tunnel vision of what I'm working on, they can give me a bigger picture. I can step back. Oh yeah, okay, I can see what you mean. I may not agree with you. I may not want to make the change the way you want to make it, because it's still mine and it's my decision on how to change it. But I can listen to your feedback, I can understand it, and I can take that in consideration to make my own work stronger. And I think that's true for any age, any person.
Yeah. I think what you said is like truly accurate. I think the teachers of adult figures in our life, especially with students, I think basically anyone who has had more experience or someone who you trust, I think those kind of people, I think you accept the feedback from them more openly rather than randomly, like random stranger on the road says, I read your work, I don't like it, you need to change this. Compared to that versus someone who you know, like your mom or your father or a guardian or friend, if they say that, like, I don't really understand what you wrote, could you maybe explain what you wrote about? Or I think that this character could be more round and you could maybe add some more obstacles. That kind of feedback, I think it's more like effective just because it's kinder and not just bluntly saying I hate it or I don't like it. And also it's more personal because you're getting that feedback from someone you trust and know.
Oh, for sure. And everyone has things to add. You know, anyone can read something and have an opinion, and often those opinions are really valid and interesting and insightful. And you never know who that person is. It could be anyone. It could be your parents. It could be your teachers. It could be your neighbor. It could be a friend. It could just be someone who writes you a fan letter and has some insight, and you think, oh, that's really an interesting thought. I hadn't considered that before. So I think everyone has great ideas for writing. Everyone has great suggestions. And it's just a matter of, as an author, listening and determining which of those opinions matter in terms of whether you agree with them or not, and how you can take those opinions and make your own work stronger.
Absolutely. So this brings me to my next question. So right now we're talking all about like feedback and reading partners, beta readers pretty much, right? So there's also this key component towards the end, which is the title. The title is kind of what makes readers interested in what you're reading. So how did you choose your latest book's title?
Well, my latest book was actually the third of a series. So the first book in the series was called The Curse of the Were-Penguin, which was about a 12-year-old boy who is an orphan, and he is sent to live with a baron in a faraway country called Bulgaria. It turns out the baron is a penguin. It turns into a monster penguin at midnight, and he attacks Bolt, and Bolt has to try to reverse the bite and the curse of the Were-Penguin, which is the name of the book. And the second book was The Revenge of the Were-Penguin. The third one was The Battle of the Were-Penguin. So my most recent book was the third of the series, ending the trilogy. It was about 1.5 years ago now that it came out. So I am working on some new things, but nothing that I quite talk about yet. But the last book in the whole series I was really excited about, and I thought was funny, but also hopefully touching, and hopefully the readers who read it enjoyed it and got something out of it.
Absolutely, sounds amazing. Now my next question for you is not about your books, it's more about your the book which you're reading. So what books are you reading currently, like outside of your own books? like like what books from other authors have you been reading, and which one are you reading currently?
Uh, I read a lot, and you're taking me aback because I can't think of. I read like 3 books last week, and I can't tell you any of the titles. I don't remember them. They're good. I can't remember the name of them. The book I'm reading right now, though, is a classic. It's David Copperfield by Charles Dickens. So it's a book that I've read twice before. I really like books that were written a long time ago that are sometimes hard to read now because they are slower than books now. They don't quite get to the plot quite so fast. But I really enjoy the writing style. They inspire me to be a better writer. When I write, I like to read books that inspire me to want to be a better writer. So a lot of the things I read, I read a lot of classics. I don't read a lot of like thrillers and books that are more popular, but I like to read books that are known for being literate or known for being exceptional award-winning books. So I tend to gravitate toward those kind of books more so than the popular best-selling books.
Makes sense. I think it's important to not join the bandwagon, but more of like just kind of like creating your own reading style and not going based on what your friend is reading or what what basically others are reading in the public, like in the general public on Goodreads or somewhere. Because I think at the end of the day, you need to really like what you're reading. You don't want to be skimming through chapters just for the sake of adding it to Goodreads and not actually properly reading it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
My last and final thing for you is, do you have any pieces of advice for young writers who want to go on to their route of becoming an author?
When I first fell in love with writing, when I was in 3rd and 4th grade, I was a really bad writer. I continued to write, and I was never very good. Eventually, though, from writing for so many years, and writing for so long until I got into an adult, I became a pretty good writer, and today I think I'm a pretty good writer. Everything needs practice. Whether you want to be good at sports, you can't just all of a sudden pick up a soccer ball and expect to be good. You have to go to the practices. You have to practice playing soccer. You have to try out for the teams. You have to play probably all through grade school, middle school, high school, and eventually you'll get to be pretty good. If you want to be a good musician, you can't just pick up the piano and play once and walk away. You got to continue taking the lessons. You got to continue putting in the work and eventually get to be a pretty good piano player or guitarist or flutist or in the orchestra or the band or whatever musical instrument. If you want to sing, you can just start singing, but to get a really good singer, you have to train your voice. If you want to be a really good actor, you can act in a play, but you have to really train and learn the craft to be a great actor. And the same thing with writing. Yes, you could love to write, but if you really want to be a great writer, if you want to write when you're in it for a living or write to be published, you have to continue to practice. You can't just say, okay, I'm going to write once and then call it a day. You got to write every day. You got to really put the time in, hone the craft, understand what it takes to be a writer. By practicing and practicing and practicing, eventually you'll get to be pretty good at no matter what you try to do. And I wouldn't have become an author if I had just written in 3rd and 4th and 5th grade and never had continued doing it. But by continuing to do it for so many years, I became to be good. That's my advice for whether you want to be a writer or do anything in life. Practice, and if you love doing it, you'll love to practice, and eventually you get to be good.
I think that's brilliant feedback. I think that kind of advice is basically something that every young writer, any young creative person requires, or basically anyone. They don't even have to be creative. I think that everyone does have some kind of creative component to themselves that they probably are yet to discover if they've not already done that already. But I think what you just said about like practicing and owning the craft is like really important, as you just said, because you kind of just need to practice if you want to actually get better at it. Because like you won't just be better at it in a day, because it's not some kind of like you write one day and then you're like you know how potions work, right? In magic, there's like this potion, like if you do this one time, you're gonna have instant relief from I don't know something, right? So basically, it's not really something that can happen instantly. It's kind of like a more like a long-term process, which is done over a long period of time.
Well, how many podcasts have you had so far?
This would be my 107th or 8th episode.
And I'm sure it's better than your first one was, which I did not hear. So, right, your first one was probably okay, but
Yeah,
I'm sure you've learned over 100. You've learned a lot, and today they're so much better. And the same thing, with anything you do.
And I think it's also like not just about like the number I'm at right now, but it's also about the amount of experience you gain through each episode, through interviewing different authors, writers, singers, and all sorts of creative people. Because creativity is not just being like, I initially started this as like an interview author kind of thing, but then I slowly gravitated towards illustrators, singers. I've slowly started moving on to actors as well. I'm trying to get on actors, contestants from AGT and BGT, and like I'm trying to get those kind of people on as well to share their stories and like talk about the struggles or like the things they have done on the show. Like I know that television industry can be super tricky and super like intense. They make you make up like random stories and like like knowing the behind the scene process of how it all works. So I think it's just about practicing and owning the craft and just like continuing to like work hard and never give up.
Yeah, it's great. A great thing to think, and I definitely agree.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being on the show with me today, Allan.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it and had a great time. So thank you very much.
Thank you. So everyone, that's the end of the episode. I hope you all learned something new, and be sure to check out Allan's books. I'll be putting his website link into the show notes. You can go check it out as soon as you can. And if you are a librarian or a teacher or a parent even, be sure to check out the books yourself and see if your kids or students might like it, and be sure to find it in your local library, school library, or even like Amazon or Barnes Nobles. Thank you so much everyone, and have a very nice day.